Yeah. So like it got super off the rails towards the end. But like I love Kurt Russell in like 80s action movie. Like he's running around with this like handheld, like this mini machine gun, like
Yes.
with his freaking like badass bro tank
His
chasing
bro tank.
after.
He's wearing like wrestler boots.
Yeah.
That like lace all the way up his calf.
They're kind of like, they remind me of like the like knee-high moccasin boots.
Yes,
like,
that's exactly what they are. Welcome back to the Movie Dads podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Howie.
I'm Kyle.
And that's Kyle. Kyle, this week, episode number 12. We're up to 12. We have a dozen episodes in the bank as of tonight.
Let's go.
Episode number 12. What do you mean you haven't seen it? Kyle has never seen Big Trouble in Little China. The John Carpenter, Kurt Russell, action, horror, sci-fi, comedy hybrid, Big Trouble in Little China.
Now, here's the deal. Physically, with my eyeballs, I have seen the movie on the shelf, and I've seen the movie cover. It's iconic.
It is.
And I know the movie, and I've seen Raiden in Mortal Kombat, which is basically, you know, a character ripped directly from this movie. So I feel like, even though I haven't seen it, I've seen it before this, but I really haven't because, wow, I have not seen this movie.
There's a lot. There's a lot going on in this movie. You had the most appropriate response when Kurt Russell first shows up with his tank top, and you're like, "I want that shirt," because that's the only, like, that's iconic. You need that shirt.
Talk about a heartthrob, man. Kurt Russell, who would have known?
It's crazy. He's been making movies since he was a freaking kid. You know that? Like, he was making Disney movies back then.
That is wild to think of.
And a teenager, he's making movies like The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes. Remember that one?
Oh my God. No, I'm not. I wasn't born in the 40s when you were.
Yeah, thank you. He's been making movies forever. Well, before we get into it, though, let's cover all the bases. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like, give us a subscribe, leave us a comment. If you're listening to us on a podcast service such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Podcast Index, do the same. Like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. If you like the content, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbors. We would love to keep making these episodes, and the more viewers we get, the better off we are. You can also find us on social media at Movie Dads Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
I will say that's one of like my favorite parts of doing the show is seeing. I love when like my friends and stuff will comment on things, but like when I see random strangers talk about stuff and we just go back with like battles on things.
Yeah,
I enjoy those, and people have some really interesting takes.
I like it when we get into discussions. I completely, you know, I mean, it's the internet. Like, people talking about how they're not going to watch Spider-Man because it's LGBTQ.
God,
like, we actually had to research, like, is that the thing? Like, there's a flag in the corner of Gwen's bedroom that I didn't notice when I saw the movie.
Yeah. The audacity of the caucasity.
That's exactly right. Or what was the one? What was the one about Batman? Oh, it was a comment on who's your favorite superhero and why is it Batman? I'm so tired of Batman stans. Like, okay. Like, it's your
probably
don't like Batman.
Marvel.
I think his profile picture was like Magneto.
Oh,
which is cool. I like Magneto. Magneto's awesome.
Was it like comic book Magneto or was it like?
Yeah, it was. No, it was not. It wasn't. Okay. No, it was comic book Magneto.
I was more like, was it Fassbender or were we talking about Gandalf?
No, it was not Ian McKellen. It was comic book Magneto. But it's just like, how dare somebody like stuff? Yeah, high roll. Whatever. It's what we do. It's the world we live in. I'm excited for this episode too, because like I'm sure we always go back and we listen or watch the episode after we record it. Last week's episode was such a downer.
Yes, I feel like, last one, it was like those last two episodes were the ones that I think I had been looking forward to the most, because I like want to talk about Batman, I want to talk about that new movie. But then you just kind of hit the nail on the head, like it was just kind of a downer. And sometimes when you're talking about things that we assume are going to be like these like seminal movies, like, not that there's pressure, but it feels like, all right, I got to say all the right stuff. And like when we're talking about Batman, like we got to make sure we're hitting on the right keys and things like that. But like for this episode, I'm excited for, because it's some random zany ass old movie that like I really enjoyed in a like goofy way. And then we're getting back to some random ass top fives. So
yeah. And these are the more fun episodes where we're doing these like random ass old movies. They're more fun because it's that we're not doing spoiler warnings and stuff, because we're talking about a movie that's older than you, right? And it's like we get to casually watch these movies. It's not like we're going to the theater and then we're running home and recording a podcast or that day or the next day or whatever. And then we get more viewers on these episodes too, because they're more entertaining, I think. But I still think it's good to do new movies every other week. I think it works, but yeah, these are more fun. They're more lighthearted. We don't go in with disappointment. Sometimes we just have low expectations for these old movies, so it works out. But it's all good.
I love it.
It's all good. So we're movie dads. We have movie kids. I got to tell you. So I had said last week on the podcast that I'd already bought tickets to see The Flash with my kids the next day. Boy, 6-year-old Desmond, 12-year-old Reagan had very different reactions to that movie when we get out. We get out of that movie. Des, what'd you think of the movie? That was the greatest movie ever. I love The Flash. He's awesome. That movie was so funny. I loved it. Reagan, what'd you think of that movie? Why was the CGI so freaking bad? That movie was so disorganized. That was the most pointless end credit scene I've ever seen in my life. She went on and on and on and on.
She's a little bit more cultured than most at her age when it comes to movies.
She really is. She really is. So,
and also like you just confirmed what I had said last week. It was like, this movie was all over the place. I liked it and enjoyed it. It had a lot of crap in it, but I know my kids will really like it. I've got a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, and like, I know the second that they see that, they are going to love it. And it sounds like that is exactly what happened with Desi. And it helps that when it's your favorite superhero and you aren't old enough to know what's going on with the real world actor and all that nonsense. Like, of
course,
he's just watching The Flash. So I can see that being like wicked awesome to finally see The Flash on the big screen.
He did have questions because like, he's seen old Batman, like he's seen old Michael Keaton Batman, but it's one of those movies where like I think it was on and he wasn't really paying attention. So when that all came up and like Michael Keaton first showed up and he's like, wait, so is he Batman too? And I'm like, yes. He's like, so there's lots of Batmans in this movie? And I'm like, there's a couple of them, yeah. And then Clooney, then there's that thing at the end. And he's like, who's that guy? And I'm like, it's confusing, isn't it? You're 6. Like,
I immediately just thought of the 4 people that are going to watch this episode that you just spoiled.
Fucked up. I'm not cutting it out either. It's my podcast.
Live your life, man.
It's our podcast.
Live your life.
Well, if they haven't seen it yet, don't go see it anyway. Who cares? Yeah. That's how I feel about it. So, what's going on?
Keep going.
No, I'm done. That was what I wanted to talk about.
Random. Speaking of like random old movies, I, for whatever reason, stumbled upon a classic from my childhood, and I thought my boys would like it. The Phantom. Have you ever seen The Phantom?
I have never seen.
Oh,
Billy Zane.
Oh my God.
Is that the Billy Zane one?
Yo, you bet your ass it is.
I've never seen it.
Dude. What? Oh yes, we finally got a random one to add to our list.
All right. Good future episode.
I swear, dude, it's his best movie by a mile. It's literally like, I know you're rolling your eyes. I'm
thinking about Billy Zane. Like,
it's not
that hard. He hasn't been in a lot of great movies.
Yeah, it's better than Titanic for him. If that's
fair.
Sense.
He's a good bad guy. He was a good slime ball.
He's a good bad guy. No one cares. But he's a really good Indiana Jones superhero, because literally it is an Indiana Jones movie, except the character, it wears like purple spandex,
a purple singlet.
Yes, and he's a great Phantom. Like, it's a very off. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. He's just very like a random ass superhero character, but he literally, it's a freaking Indiana Jones movie. So I won't go into too much about it because we're going to do an episode on it now. But Parker freaking loved it.
Really?
He has like a skull ring in it. And like, I'm pretty sure that's where he gets power from, or he gets charged up by these like skulls that they find. It's kind of a weird deal. But anyways, we had like a bath bomb for them a couple weeks ago where it had like a treasure in the middle, and it was a ring. It's like the second that Parker saw the Phantom in his power ring, he sprinted upstairs. I had no idea what he was doing. And then he came back down and like held his hand out with his ring. So now he runs around as the Phantom.
That's cool.
His pistol and his sword. The character is like Han Solo meets Indiana Jones.
All right.
So, but yeah, that's what we watched. It was good. He liked it. Grayson was playing Roblox, so he wasn't really paying attention, but
that's fair.
Cool. Let's jump into the most excited segment of the week, where we talk about things that get us up in the morning,
get
for
the juices flowing,
nerd stuff. This week was kind of a short, not a short week, but a busy week at work and family and running around with stuff. So
tell me about it.
Yeah, you have had an interesting week too. But as I was kind of thinking, like, what am I excited for? There's a new game coming out next week, but that's not really something that I am all juiced up about. However, 2 nights ago, I stumbled upon a Batman comic book series that came out in 2021 that I did not realize was a thing. Like, for whatever reason, it just didn't hit my radar. It is on DC's Black Label, which, for those of you not in the know, Black Label is like those are their books that they're allowed to be adult. So like, there's a lot of cussing. There's a lot of like, there's nudity in it.
So they're
comic
pornos.
book, actually, no, but actually there is one Batman Black Label book, the very first Black Label book that they did, that was pretty controversial because it shows Bruce Wayne coming home, or Batman coming home, and like taking his bat costume off, and there's like full wang. And that was very controversial years and years ago.
It's unnecessary. That's unnecessary wiener.
It was, and that's what it was. It was super unnecessary, and that
Don't
was
force
why
that wiener on me.
So. No, Black Label is not full of superhero wieners. That's not what it is. It's more for people to do one-off stories or self-contained stories that are not like connected to continuity. So there's a lot more freedom. Like, they don't have to do like the costumes the same. Like, there's a really good Constantine and Batman story with
I'd get down with that.
It's good. The art is amazing. It's one of my favorite Batman costumes in comics. It's also from the book Batman Noel. They did Ben Affleck's bat suit. Like, they tried to do some stuff in it, and a lot of Pattinson's bat suit. But anyways, this book that came out, it's called Batman the Imposter. And the reason why I'm so interested in it is because it's basically like Robert Pattinson's version of Batman. Like, it's not the exact same costume, but it's very similar. Like the art is incredible. The art is done by Andrea Sorrentino, but it's very kind of like dark and gritty and realistic looking. The writer is Mattson Tomlin, but the whole story is it's like a serious. It's not like fun, playful like Justice League stuff. It's like a serious like just sleeves rolled up in the grit Batman story. It's like he's doing like detective work and stuff like that. I think I mentioned those are my favorite books of them. Mm-hmm. So I ordered them so they can be sent. So I haven't read all of them, but I saw a bunch of reviews and a YouTube video that kind of led me to it that I'm like pumped for them to show up for me to read. So I'm going to read them on my way to Comic-Con on Friday.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Oh, that's good. So my 6 to midnight for this week was, I like trailers. I'm a big trailer guy. I love a well put together, well constructed trailer. So I was excited when the trailer for Kraven the Hunter came out. So I want to talk about that because that came out this week. Listen, you and I texted back and forth because I sent you that and I was like, Kyle, you got to see this trailer. Like, this is holy shit.
Which I'm glad you had that caption with it, because then I was like, oh fuck, okay, this is gonna be good. Let's go.
I'm not a huge, and I told you this, I'm not a huge Aaron Taylor Johnson fan. I don't dislike the guy. I like Kick-Ass. I thought he was really good. Kick-Ass.
Yeah.
Quicksilver, like that's probably the character. That's not necessarily his fault. I was kind of turned off on him with the live action, the Godzilla movie. Because he was the main character in that, and he was dull, like it.
Yeah.
But that movie was kind of dull.
Itself, yeah.
It was kind of dull. And then it was a good movie, but not there wasn't enough Godzilla.
Talk about a movie where like the trailer was so good and got me so hyped. That trailer, like the way they showed a lot of like the big footprints and like all this is happening. And then they did the skydiving with the red smoke and that like scary ass violin music. It looked amazing. And it was
trailer
kind of boring.
Was the best parts of the movie. Yeah, it was a dull movie. Anyway, so that kind of turned me off on him. Now, I did see Bullet Train last summer when it came out. Did you ever see Bullet Train? It's a great movie. I really enjoyed it. A lot of fun, fast-paced action, a lot of entertaining, like witty comedy kind of mixed in. He's one of the best parts.
Who else was in that movie?
Brad Pitt's the main character.
Oh yeah, I know
what I'm
exactly
talking about.
What movie
there's a bunch of people in it.
Brad Pitt has like long hair in it, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. He's shaggy.
Hair.
But Aaron Taylor Johnson's like the best part of that movie. Like his character is super entertaining. He has this super thick accent, and he's
he suited up? Is he in a suit?
Yeah.
Okay,
he's kind of like a mob guy. Anyway, so prior to that, so like when he was cast and the casting rumors came out, he was Kraven the Hunter. I was like, I don't know, him carrying a movie. Let's see, the last time he carried a movie was Godzilla. Ugh. So, boy, what a freaking trailer! Like they had announced it was going to be an R-rated movie. That trailer is hard R. Like he bites a dude's nose off in that trailer and spits it out the window of a car.
Yeah, it was freaking epic.
Yeah. The trailer was like hyper violent, looks super action packed. It looks like they changed a little bit of Kraven's backstory, like how he got, because I think he's a mutant in the comic books. I don't think they had. I think he's a mutant, right? Isn't he have just like enhanced abilities?
I thought he like drank like a serum or something that gave him, but that might be not right. I'm gonna
it could be some like drank something and it caused the mutation that gave him powers, whatever.
Or maybe like he grew up on the savannah or something, and he like you're right, he just has heightened senses.
his whole basis in the comic books is he's this like supreme hunter, and like he's a Spider-Man villain because like he considers Spider-Man the most dangerous game. Yeah, that's his whole purpose. But anyway, like the trailer, we get glimpses of Chameleon, which is his brother's Chameleon. We get Calypso, and then it looks like we're getting a comic accurate Rhino.
Ooh, that's fucking fucking go. Did we talk about that on the pod last time?
We've talked about how much we like Paul Giamatti and like how dumb that Rhino was. We've talked about that.
But how much we wanted we want comic accurate Rhino.
Yeah, so it looks like we're getting it, right? And then we got Russell Crowe again.
The Crow.
Like in a superhero movie. Like he loves them, apparently.
Yeah.
And he likes being dads. So
I was going to say he's everybody's dad, and he's done DC and Marvel.
But man, if you haven't seen the trailer for this movie, like look it up on YouTube, man. It is fire. I'm psyched for this movie. Like,
yeah, it looks freaking awesome.
Yeah,
this is a Sony movie, right?
Yep.
Like this isn't like one of the Marvel cinematic. This is like so. One, I thought it looked freaking awesome. I'm stoked for it. He looks like a badass in the movie.
He is super jacked.
It kind of reminded me of like when the very first Thor trailer came out and we saw Hemsworth for the first time, like looking like a Greek god.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the same vibe that we got with this trailer of like, holy shit, he got pretty big for his last couple of movies, but man, talk about a glow up from Kick-Ass 1 to this movie.
Right.
So, but it looks awesome. But the first thing that I think of is Spider-Man. Of like, God, can get these characters? Like, I want to see these characters fight like classic Spider-Man.
Right.
Like have Kraven show up and him and Blade get into it in New York City while Spider-Man's trying to stop them all or something crazy like that.
I'm with you. I mean, like we've got all these Spider-Man villains and no Spider-Man.
I know, it's so weird, which is crazy because that's the best part, right? But it's nice to see that the second best rogues gallery is getting a lot of love. So
yeah.
Second to Batman's. So
yeah, no, I'm with you there. So yeah, that was my 6 to midnight for this week. I did have a little bit of housekeeping I wanted to touch on. It's not really housekeeping, but I wanted to kind of circle back on some Flash stuff because so now that the Flash is out and it's been out, we've gotten some information over the past week about things about that movie. Listen, I don't want to just continue to shit on a movie, but I'm gonna. So Andy Machete came out, like we talked about on the podcast how bad the CGI was, and he came out in like that it was intentional because you're watching the movie through Barry's slow motion eyes. Get out.
Get out.
Don't
the fuck
if
out.
that was seriously your intention, you should have told people that ahead of time.
Yes.
Don't use that excuse for shitty CGI. And it's the whole movie. It's not just the parts that are in slow-mo.
Yeah.
Not buy it.
There were parts that like weren't that bad. Like I saw another clip of like when Supergirl was fighting guys on top of like a Russian spot in the snow, and I didn't get like, oh, that looks so horrible vibe, like re-seeing the clip.
Yeah.
But then they showed like a clip of the building coming down and was like, oh my God.
Yeah, and then there's parts of her fight with Zod that were really bad too. And
yes, that was probably
from
the
Barry's
worst
perspective, right? Yeah, that wasn't from Barry's perspective. So don't give me that line of bullshit, Andy Machete. Get out of here.
Yeah,
I don't believe.
Yeah,
it. And then,
I mean, you're the one who's told me to like give everyone a shot. Give the new DC crew, and this is what we get right after we find out that he's going to be the new Batman director. Like,
right. I know.
What? No.
So then there was news coming out. There's been a couple other things too. So like it didn't do well at the box office. It looks like it's going to finish below what Black Adam did, and that lost the studio money. So, which is crazy to me, but at the same time, whatever. That just shows people's lack of faith. Then there was chatter like, oh, the Flash might get a sequel if it makes enough money. Well, they waited till it kind of bombed before they made that announcement. Like, why even say that?
Yeah,
that's pointless. Like, we know it's not going to recoup all its money. It started too slow. We already know. So there was that, and then there was the talk that like the end cameo scene, the very last one, the one I kind of mentioned a little bit ago, that one was like, it was filmed as 3 different cameos based on what they thought they were going to do with the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's why Barry Allen looks so weird, because they just filmed it not that long ago.
Yes. And there were other seminal main actor characters that were going to be in the movie. That
Henry Cavill was going to be in it.
Movie. Yes,
Henry was in it.
Henry was freaking in it.
They had Wonder Woman was back in it too.
Yeah, and they cut like, there were basically, it came out that there were some major moments and characters that were going to show up at the end or at some point there towards the end that I think would have probably let us leave the theater feeling a little bit more like, you know, if freaking Henry Cavill Superman showed up at the end, I would have been like, let's go.
Right.
I would have got pumped. But the person that did just killed it. So
I have so like lost confidence. Like, I didn't have a lot anyway. And then we talked about this last week too, because you mentioned when we did our top 5 DCEU movies, you mentioned both the Batman versus Superman cut and the Zack Snyder Justice League, and how much better those director cuts movies are, which you are not wrong. They are both supremely better than the theatrical releases we got. Like, it's light years better. Andy Muschietti come out and said he's got a super long cut of the Flash that
of this. Oh my gosh.
And then there's been that talk about like the David Ayer cut of Suicide Squad.
Yep.
What are they doing at DC?
Yeah, why don't they just let them do these movies? Like, who is in charge over there?
Nobody.
Don't know
or
anything.
Everybody. That's the problem.
I texted you that they literally, this movie, when all the news came out that like, so-and-so was in the movie and they took him out, or they cut this, they just reshot this whole ending. Like, they have done that with every one of these movies. Every one of them has had something like that happen.
And you've mentioned to me last week, which I had completely forgotten this existed, like the Batgirl movie that had Michael Keaton in it.
Yeah.
And Brendan Fraser is Firefly? That got scrapped after it was filmed. They just shelved it. Nobody's going to see that movie.
Which is crazy, because that's more Keaton Batman. And the pictures that I sent you from that like filming look amazing.
Listen, I can't in my head imagine that movie's that much worse than Justice League.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And if you're worried about losing more money on it, put it on your streaming service. Don't market it. Just put it out.
Yeah.
Get viewers based on people that want to see it.
Dude, there are some shocking kind of moves that are made with that. And it's also crazy. Like, anything that has we all know that I'm a big Batman fan, and I feel like I'm always talking about him, but like, anything that has Batman in it should be a teed up home run. Like, how do you not hit home runs when you got Batman, when you got Michael Keaton Batman? Like, just figure it out, guys.
And I don't want to sit there and I don't want to dwell on this and keep talking about it, but I mean, like, that's just a bunch of news that I just scratch my head and I say, "What? Yeah, burn the whole thing down." Like, just you've screwed the studio everything. Too. You've screwed so much up. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. It's crazy. Anyway, we got to move on. But yeah, I had to throw that stuff out there because it doesn't make any sense. Like, there's no sense at all in what they're doing. But so that takes us to our featured segment. I can't believe you haven't seen it. The John Carpenter, Kurt Russell classic? Big Trouble in Little China.
I would consider it a classic, even though I haven't seen it. I know that it is a classic. I've seen it now, but previously to this week.
There were scenes while we were watching this, and I'd like look over at you like when something really stupid crazy was about to happen. Because like the first half of that movie, there's a little bit of like weird supernatural stuff. And then the last like third of the movie, it's like off the rails. Yeah, it's off the
Yeah,
rails.
it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah.
It opens up as like just like a classic 80s vibe. Like I was there, like the moment it started, it was like, oh, I'm here for it. The dad from Three Ninjas is in it. Grandpa, yeah. For those of you who haven't seen Three Ninjas, I feel bad about your childhood. But man, the second that he popped up, I think I looked over at you and was like, all right, I already like this movie.
Yeah.
Because it's just what a moment to see. Yeah, Kurt Russell he's a badass. He's a badass action comedy guy. Like, just it looked like just like the most 80s movie of all 80s movies.
Yeah, so basically he's a truck driver, and he's stops in Chinatown in San Francisco, right? Makes a delivery, and he's hanging out with his buddy. They're up all night gambling and drinking, and then like his buddy's like, "Oh, I got to go to the airport and pick up my fiance who's I just flew in from China." And Kurt Russell's like, "I'll take you. Let's go." And then she gets kidnapped. Kim Cattrall shows up. They go to find her, and then like there's a gang war between the two gangs.
That gang war. So like Kurt Russell is sticking with his buddy because his buddy owes him money from gambling. Like the guy lost, and so he's basically like sticking with him to make sure he's getting his money.
Right.
And driving him around in this semi truck in downtown or in Chinatown, San Francisco, which if you've ever drove around there, that's not a place you're going to be whipping a semi truck around like he was. So that already, as a Californian, I saw that and was already like, okay, this movie is fantasy. Yeah, this is definitely not a real life thing. But when they pull into this alley trying to find, I can't remember if they were chasing someone or find someone, but when they pull up on this gang war, that was the part of the movie where I kind of sat up and was like, okay, this is fucking awesome. Like it literally felt like Gangs of New York from like the 80s with these two different triad China gangs. I don't remember the names of the actual gangs.
I don't remember either.
I don't think they had the red team and the yellow team.
They
were wearing like the exact same costumes.
Yes.
They were wearing the same kind of like headbands with their own team colors. But there was like a dude with like a bandoliers and like guns, and other dudes with swords, and so they start like kicking the shit out of each other, and it's super gory. Like they are getting each other up, they're shooting each other, they're fighting this alley, while Kurt Russell and them are sitting in their semi truck. As it like they're in the middle, and this fight kind of just came together around them. So
right.
Kurt Russell, he pulls his knife out right when he sees everyone show up.
He's holding it like this.
And then he literally holds it for like the whole like 15-minute scene because he has no idea what's going on. But after that, the supernatural guys show up.
Yeah. Raiden and his brothers.
Yeah. Raiden climbs down the lightning in this like old school, literally Raiden from Mortal Kombat or like ancient feudal Japan or something. And that like they were fucking awesome. I think that for me, that was the one part of the movie that I wish, because later on in the movie, at some point, all of a sudden, these three like supernatural super god fighters just end up in like normal suits, and they're just like a regular like thug for the main bad guy. Yeah, I was like, you guys opened these up with so badass. I wanted more Raiden. So but I like that scene.
So Kurt Russell even goes like incognito as like a dork to go like try to buy the girl back in a brothel. And you had made a comment, you're like, this is Chinatown, there's like prostitutes everywhere, and then he walks into a brothel and you're like, I told you, that's Chinatown.
Best restaurants in San Francisco and 100 strip clubs on every corner. It's Chinatown.
Yeah, so he goes to buy her back, and it turns out like they're not, like they're gonna keep her because she gets kidnapped from the brothel by the Raiden and his brothers. Because the main bad guy, Lo Pan, needs her to live forever and take over the universe. pretty much, because she's got green eyes. He needs her. So that's the basic story.
Yeah, it would take 3 weeks to explain the ins and outs of the plot once you really figure it out.
Really, kind of would. That's the gist. Like he needs her. He's got to marry her, and he's got to execute her so that he gets to turn into a human. And
Lo-Pan is the nerdy assistant from Mulan, who's like the finger pointer poker guy who's just super annoying in the movie Mulan, if you've ever seen that.
Yeah, he's so so Lo-Pan was played by, I think his name's James Wong. We kind of he was in Everything Everywhere All at Once. He played Michelle Yeoh's father in that. So he was at the Oscars with her and stuff, but he's been around forever. He's in a ton of movies. Like he's always like, oh, I know that guy from that movie, but you don't like know his name. Kind of deal.
I think he's the dad in Kung Fu Panda.
He is the dad in Kung Fu Panda. You are correct. That is right. So, but yeah, that's James Hong. James Hong was Lo-Pan. But yeah, he even plays like the human version of Lo-Pan. He's like this creepy, grizzled, like overcooked old man in a wheelchair.
Oh my gosh,
super! That's like the creepiest part of the
gross.
Movie. Yes. But you kind of get to the part towards the end where they're like, they go in, they're going to rescue the girls, right? They got to get them back, or they rescue the one, but then they got to go back in and get Kim, because then Kim Cattrall gets taken, and like, so they got to go back in and they got to kick everybody's ass and stuff. And it's pretty, there's a lot of action. There's a lot of fighting and stuff. They get the yellow turban gang to go with them and, fight alongside them, and they fight the 3 Raiden brothers, and there's a Yeti.
Yes, freaking Chewbacca / Yeti thing.
Yeah,
looked more like Toka or Razor, whichever the wolf was.
The wolf, yeah.
Ninja Turtles too. That's what it reminded me of. If he was on crack.
That's meth, probably. Yeah, that's accurate. That's accurate. Like, have you ever seen the movie Creep Show? You ever seen Creep Show? It's like a Stephen King, George Romero. It's like an anthology movie. Like there's a bunch of like shorts in it, like horror shorts. Anyway, there's one called The Crate, where this crate gets delivered to a museum and it's got like a creature living in it, like eats people. And I always think the thing from Big Trouble in Little China looks like the thing in the crate.
Love that.
It kind of does. So I'm like, yeah, that's the thing in the crate. Anyway, there's the floating orb of eyeballs.
Oh, that's so, like, it reminds me of like the little like remote droids in Star Wars, but it's not a droid. It's a little squishy
flesh thing.
Yeah, it looks like a garbage pail kid thing.
Yeah.
When they get toward the end of the movie, they go in to save the girl, and then they leave, but they've missed the girl, so they have to go back in, which was an interesting plot point.
Yeah.
But so they go back in, but this time when they go back in, Lo-Pan and his cronies, who still have both of the green-eyed girls, they go into like a different realm, like a weird realm underground, or like it's a weird temple that's like through. Basically, the main characters have to drink like this weird drink. I can't and it's just so weird. They go into a different realm underground, and all of a sudden these weird monsters show up. Like they're walking through a tunnel, and it's reminding me kind of like the original movies of It. Like this monster kind of jumped out from the wall randomly, and then slowly.
The giant bug. I forgot about the giant bug. Like eats the dude. It's so random.
So like it got super off the rails towards the end, but like I love Kurt Russell in like 80s action movie. Like he's running around with this like handheld, like this mini machine gun, like with his freaking like badass bro tank chasing after.
He's wearing like wrestler boots.
Yeah,
that, like lace all the way up his calf.
They're kind of like, they remind me of like the like knee-high moccasin boots.
Yes,
like,
that's exactly what they are.
Lace boots. But his buddy cop character in this movie, I don't really recognize him from anything. reminded me kind of Short Round from Indiana Jones or the Goonies. Like that was the actor kind of reminded me of that guy.
Yeah.
But he out of nowhere, like the whole time I just thought he was like this like super reserved
Sidekick.
little nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then out of nowhere, he starts Jackie Chan kicking everyone's butt. And he was like the most badass fighter in the whole movie.
He is. So. Kurt Russell's really not that good. There's a couple scenes too where he like runs away and then he comes back and everybody's already knocked out because the dude kicked all their asses. Yes. Yeah, it's cool. Listen, it's like, I don't know. It's such a random, odd movie. Like it's a fantasy action horror movie. I don't even know how to describe it. Like it's wild. It's a wild movie. It flopped at the box office when it came out. Like nobody, because it's so.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was like a $20 million budget. It made like 10. You know, like it lost. Yeah,
bummer.
It is a bummer, but it's one of those movies. Like it's made for a certain type of person.
Very much, yes.
Like these guys
reminds me of kind of like when the original Blade Runner came out. Like it was just too weird for a lot of people to really get. And I think that's probably a lot what happened with this movie. So.
I'm sure John Carpenter had a lot of that when he was making movies in the 80s and stuff. He probably had a lot of people that were like, that's some weird stuff. His movies, like sometimes in them, they get progressively weirder and weirder. Mm-hmm. Like and this is one of them. Like it's a crazy movie. It's like its own genre because it's so random. Like there's so much going on, but it's fun. It's one of those movies that like,
fun.
You wish it would have gotten a sequel at some point, but it never did. But that's because it lost money.
That was something that I had mentioned after of like, man, we never got a sequel. What if they went back and brought Kurt Russell back for like either like a reboot or a new one, but he got to still be in it.
Yeah.
I think that would be great. The movie really feels kind of like it's two movies in one. Like they could have ended the movie when they get out of the place the first time, and like it would have been just like a classic 80s action comedy.
Yep.
That things weren't too crazy or off the rails.
Right.
And then the second half of the second movie was like where they're like, all right, now we go to space and we get fucking really weird.
Yeah. I mean, one of the best parts is like Lopan throws a knife at the end, right, at Kurt Russell, and he catches it, and he throws it back and just kills him. He's like stabs him in the head and drops him. Like that's okay, all right, cool. Kurt Russell really hadn't done shit the whole movie, and now he just killed the main bad guy. And no, it's weird because the movie's all over the place. So it's like talking about it, we're kind of all over the place too. But like when I saw this originally, like I think this movie was a solid like 7.5. It's entertaining. It's cool. Kurt Russell's awesome. It's up there. I would give it the same rating now. Seeing it again, I still feel like it's a solid 7.5. It's a good movie. It's a cool genre movie. It's a fun watch every couple of years kind of deal. Pop it in and watch it. Like it's entertaining. I enjoy it. So
yeah, I know that I would have liked it back in the day. I agree. 7.5 is exactly what I had for it too. Just it's like a perfect 80s action comedy, and Kurt Russell is going in and doing this episode and diving in the list of like pulling what are some of our top fives later. Like just Kurt Russell's a badass. He's cool.
Yeah.
And I agree. This should be a movie that everyone should see. If you haven't, or if it's been a while, you should see it because it's wild. And then comment on what was your favorite super zany out of this world part.
Yeah, there's just like it feels like sometimes some of these movies that came out of the 80s, like 80s was a fever dream. Like some of these movies are just
facts.
Like who the hell? What were you smoking when you wrote this? And then like who agreed to make it? Because and I'm glad they did, but it's wild.
Back when I was growing up, like and younger, like I always hated kind of 80s vibes in that like time period. But now that I'm older, that's for whatever reason, like the last like 5 or 6 years, I've like all of a sudden become this like 80s nerd. So like anytime,
I'm with you.
Anytime like that synth wave vibes, give me some synth music in a movie, and like I'm hooked, line, and sinker. So
yeah, I don't know, I'm the same way. I'm with you 100% on that one. So,
Um,
but yeah, that's
sweet.
it. That's Big Trouble in Little China. If you haven't seen it, definitely worth a watch. I'm glad you liked it. I knew you kind of would.
Mhm,
And then
mhm.
if you have seen it before and you haven't seen it in a while, like Kyle said, it's worth another watch. So
One of my favorite parts of doing this podcast is there's like 3 or 4 people that they will text me that when they listen to it, but usually they'll go and watch the same movie that we did, or we'll go
nice.
back and try a movie out. And it's fun to hear that of like, oh, you guys got me excited to go see that movie or check out this hella random ass movie, so they can see what we're doing. So
Yeah, no,
anyways,
absolutely. That takes us into our next segment, my favorite. There can be only 5.
only 5.
It just never gets old. I'm never tired of
Yeah,
it.
never. Do you want to kick it off? I think I
can.
kicked off last
Absolutely.
time.
Either way.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So we each picked one, and we kind of went basic based on our movie this week. We were both directly tie in. I picked John Carpenter's 5 best movies. So we'll start there. John Carpenter's had a really weird career. Mostly horror movies, some action movies, some horror action movies, some Big Trouble in Little China, crazy fantasy action movies. And then, one of the coolest things I think about John Carpenter is he writes his own music, which did you know he's the composer on almost every one of his movies?
I did not. Excuse me. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Which I think is kind of neat because that's not something you're used to seeing. So, big fan of his, especially when I was making this list. Though I was like, man, I really like some of these movies. So,
I was looking at him and was like, wow, I thought he only did horror movies. I didn't realize he did all of these other movies, and I didn't know he did the Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah. So, I had at number 5, I had a tie. So at number 5, I had a tie. I had Big Trouble in Little China and Escape from New York at number 5.
Oh,
as a tie. I don't know if it's because of the Kurt Russell dynamic, but obviously he's worked with John Carpenter on a number of movies. But Big Trouble in Little China, I'm obviously a very big fan of. I think it's a really cool movie. We just got done talking about it. Escape from New York was an awesome concept of a movie when it came out in the early 80s. Like Snake Plissken is like this awesome action hero. It's so like over the top kind of. He's such a like grindhouse kind of action hero.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like they got to get him out of prison, is it the president's stuck in New York and he's crash landed on the island and they got to get him out and Snake's the only one that can do it.
Yep.
It's just, there's all these gangs and like bad guys and stuff overrun and he's got to get there and he's got to get the president out. And it's just a cool movie. It's just cool. It's what it is. It's a cool movie. So
he's a cool character in that.
Super cool. Like it's yeah. And his name's Snake. I mean, like that's awesome. Number 4, I had The Fog. If you've never seen The Fog, it's a very, very well done horror movie. Again, this is back in like John Carpenter's horror heyday. They remade The Fog in the 2000s and it is dog shit bad. Like it's
I was gonna say I thought that movie was horrible.
It was. The remake's terrible, but the original is actually a really good movie. It's this fog rolls into this coastal town and there's basically like water zombies coming up and like getting people and stuff. It's cool. It's not, don't confuse it with The Mist. That's a totally different story. But it's just a cool kind of simple horror movie. It's really well done. It's got some good scares. It's good writing. It's a lot of fun. And number 3, I had Halloween.
Oh,
and number 3.
I thought that was going to be higher.
I know. I'll probably get dragged a little bit for that. Like Halloween's one of the most important horror franchises ever made.
This is your number 3? Is that what you said?
Yeah, number 3.
Okay.
John Carpenter's directly involved in like the first 2 Halloweens. Did you know? Like, so originally, like anybody who knows, like there was the first Halloween with Michael Myers, The Shape, in his painted Shatner mask. Then they made Halloween 2, which was retconned with the new ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is a totally different movie that has nothing to do with Michael Myers. It's about Halloween masks that kill kids. Okay. So John Carpenter's original plan for making Halloween movies was to have a series where each Halloween movie was a different movie.
Yeah.
And they were just called Halloween, so he could just turn out like a horror movie every year. And that was the whole concept between Season of the Witch. But Season of the Witch, everybody that went and saw it was like, where's Michael Myers?
Yeah, give us that creepy ass bad guy.
And that's actually not a bad movie, but it was so looked down upon because it didn't have Michael Myers in it that, it was kind of, that scrapped the whole idea, and they went back and did a whole bunch of shitty Michael Myers movies. But anyway,
when people hear that there was a Halloween movie that didn't have Michael Myers in it, they're like, what?
Exactly.
How do you do that?
Right. Obviously, he's a very important character in horror movies. That's a very important movie when it comes to the slasher genre. It's very well done. It's a very sense of dread. It's a great movie. It's essential. I just like these other two better. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So number 2, I had Prince of Darkness, and this is probably one of the least well-known John Carpenter movies. Prince of Darkness is one of my favorites. I dig this movie. I will watch this movie once a year. It's cheesy. It's 80s. Grandpa from Three Ninjas is in it.
Let's go.
Right?
I'm sold.
Yeah. Here's the basic premise of this movie is like this priest dies and he has this really old church, and I think it's in LA, but it's like this really old church. And it turns out he was like a secret member of this society that like guarded this secret in the basement of this church. So when he dies, basically people come in to investigate. It turns out there's this canister in the basement, and essentially what it is it's Satan that is trapped in this canister. The movie's really cool because it's all very claustrophobic, because the whole movie pretty much takes place in this church. And this canister starts leaking and people start getting possessed. So yeah, John Carpenter did a demonic possession. The reason I like this movie is it's actually got a really cool story where basically like God and the devil were aliens that came to Earth, and that's why people worshiped him. And the essence of Satan is trapped and it's like there's an anti-god in it that's like above Satan in this movie, and it's cool. The effects are creepy, and there's like a lot of bugs and shit crawling out of people's face. Alice Cooper's in it, which is kind of neat. It's a cool movie. Like this is cheesy 80s, but it's got a cool story. I kind of dig it. And then number 1 for me for John Carpenter movies is The Thing. The Thing is my favorite horror movie of all time. Favorite, not scariest, but favorite. That movie is so well done. It's a great movie overall. I guess this is another movie that like when it came out, it was shit on by critics and stuff.
Yep.
It's Kurt Russell again, right? Takes place in Antarctica. There's an alien, essentially, that can look like anyone or any animal, because at one point it's a dog. And it's this they're trapped in this basically, I don't know, like it's in Antarctica, like a bunker.
It's like a laboratory, like a science lab or something.
So in the whole movie, there's all this like, we don't know who the thing is, right? Like we don't know who's not the human. And like there's all this infighting, and like these people, like I can't trust anybody. The practical effects are amazing. There's a part where they're like doing defibrillation on this guy, like on his chest, and it literally opens up into teeth and rips this guy's arms off. And then like the head grows spider arms and crawls away.
Which
like, it's
is
insane.
So creepy looking.
It's and it's like 1982.
Yeah.
Like the practical effects are better than The Flash.
Yes. But they're like classic body horror. Like people still refer to that movie in terms of like practical effects for like, the way they creatures.
They did a prequel that came out like 12, 13 years ago, something like that, like 2010-ish. It was a prequel. I did too. My biggest issue with the prequel was the CGI, because it was all CGI. Yeah. And I'm like, you're made a sequel to a movie that's at that point like was 30 years old. that had the best practical effects ever in a horror movie, and you didn't do practical effects? Like, come on.
When things like that happen, those are like the moments where it's like, fuck, the studio doesn't understand the property enough to hire someone who does.
Yeah.
And like, it's kind of, I'll give J.J. Abrams credit for The Force Awakens. He really went hard in the paint on trying to have more locations and like practical effects. And because that's what the original Star Wars had. And it goes a long way. It totally goes a long way. So it's, yeah. I liked that movie though, the sequel to that, or the prequel.
I didn't mind it.
More because I really enjoy The Thing, but it's not a property that I'm like, don't screw this up. I'm just like, oh, give me more of that. So I enjoyed that. Nice. I like your list. Our lists are similar and different. So
nice.
When I was looking at the movies, again, I was like, when you said you want to do John Carpenter movies, I was like, one, I never knew that this Big Trouble in Little China was John Carpenter movie. And also, didn't he just do Halloween? Like, that was all I could like think of. So so my first movie, you are going to probably make fun of me for it, but I had Ghost of Mars. This movie was
I'm gonna say this before you get into this. Like, every one of his movies is cool. Even the ones that aren't that good.
Yep.
I'll say that.
I liked Ghost of Mars because, one, when it came out, it was cool. Like, Ice Cube was in like a movie and was in space, and it was super like adult and super like graphic, and it was, like you said, it was cool. And like at the time I was way too young to be seeing the movie, but my oldest brother and all of his friends like loved it. So I was like, I have to watch this movie. It's horrible. If you ever go back and rewatch it, it's not a good movie. But the concept is kind of cool. Yes. Like they're on Mars. It's kind of that futuristic cyberpunk type kind of vibes.
And the aliens, the ghosts of Mars, they have a cool design. It's neat.
Yes, they are cool, and it's very like kind of creepy like setting when they come across like I can't remember if it's like a research station or something, but like everyone's dead. And
I kind of want to watch it now.
Yeah, dude, it's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
Isn't it like hyper violent too?
Yes, it's very. It's not NC-17. It's
no, but I mean like limbs and shit getting ripped off. It's super bloody.
Yeah, for sure. So I have that my number 5. For my number 4, I have Big Trouble in Little China. I enjoyed that movie enough that I have it on my top 5 in terms of John Carpenter movies. I love that movie. Won't dive into it because we just talked about it. And then for number 3, I put 2 movies, Escape from LA and Escape from New York. I know those are 2 separate movies, but I think they could go together.
I could see like your age like in LA more. I get that.
I would say I actually really like Escape from LA way more, and that's because that was the first one I saw. I actually didn't know for many, many years that there was a movie that came before Escape from LA. I just thought that was what it was. And I really like that movie. And I like Snake Plissken. He's a badass. So I'm kind of with you on that. So Halloween is my number 2. This is, most people would say this is probably his best movie, or at least his most famous franchise. Or and we talked a lot about Halloween. The original movie is so good. Right. I loved when they just did kind of the sequel to the original 2, or original 3. Like, I love that they went back to that first movie type vibes, because that movie was great. It is a seminal classic.
Yes.
And then I had for my number one the same as you. I have The Thing. I really enjoyed that movie.
Yes.
Growing up, like actually, and this I guess will maybe speak to my age, but like my first experience with The Thing was actually like a PlayStation 2 game that came out.
Oh, right. I remember that. Yeah.
It was like
There was like a game.
Yeah, it was a really good game, and we had it on like a demo disc. And so like when I first played it, I had no idea that it was from a movie, but it was awesome and it was super scary and creepy. Mm. And then that's what kind of stumbled me down to jumping into that. And I think a lot of people I know have The Thing as kind of their favorite horror movie. Like people who like horror movies, like that is really good. Like right up there. So
they did a 40th anniversary last year in the summer, and I actually took Reagan to go see it.
Oh, cool!
In the theater, and she was like, "This movie's awesome," and I'm like, no,
I love that. Yeah, that's so great. You have such a cool movie buddy for the rest of your life. I love it.
I do.
So yeah, I mean, we had some movies that were similar. I mean,
yeah,
I think we had 4 out of 5, maybe.
3. We had 3 because I didn't have Ghost of Mars and I didn't have Prince of Darkness.
Oh, yeah.
I had a tie. I had Big Trouble in Little China and Escape from New York as a tie. Yeah. So, I'm a little surprised neither one of us had They Live on the list. I mean, I was close to having it on there, but it's at number 6. So I didn't, which it's a Roddy Piper, the sunglasses and the alien.
For sure thought you were going to have that on your list.
It was close.
Sweet. All right, let's jump into the next. There can only be 5. Mm-hmm. We did top 5 Kurt Russell movies. So I thought that was kind of interesting after looking at John Carpenter's movies and how many Kurt Russell's movies are a part of that. And as I was going through Kurt Russell's movie list, like just multiple times, I'm like, oh, I can love that movie. It's been so long since I've seen that. I do have an honorable mention. It was hard not to have this in my list, but my honorable mention for Kurt Russell movies, Captain Ron.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Not a lot of people know this movie, I would say. And he's not really the main character, but the movie's named after him, and he is like the driving character.
He's the best part.
Yeah, he's like a drunk boat captain that Martin Short brings his family to the Caribbean to go on like a boat trip, and like they picked like the worst drunk captain ever, and it's crazy funny things ensued. He's got like seashell braids, like it doesn't look like the normal Kurt Russell, and I freaking love Captain Ron. So
I'm with you.
My mom's gonna love that shout out too, if she ever listens to this pod. Okay, number 5. I didn't want to have one of these movies. I felt like it would be rude to have it kicked off, so I did tie them. So for number 5, I have a tie is Escape from LA, which we've already talked about. I had to have that in my top 5 at somewhere, but it's tied with the movie Miracle. Miracle is a Team USA hockey story from the 70s,
early 80s,
early 80s. See there, that'll say a lot about my age. So, but he is a great coach character. Like he's like I can't remember what state he's from, but his accent is like super thick. He's like sounds like a hockey guy.
Yeah.
And he's awesome. And I've stolen a ton of like motivational clips of videos of those speeches and sent them to players as I was coaching over the years. So number 4, this is a big one in my family. We watched it a lot growing up. Not really necessarily the franchise, but the first movie for sure, Stargate.
Okay.
Stargate was, and he's not necessarily the main character, but he's one of the main characters in it.
Yeah.
Love Stargate. It checks all the Star Trek, Star Wars boxes for us. For whatever reason, that was a movie we watched a lot. So it very much feels like Star Trek meets Dune. Like if those two movies were combined, that's what you get with Stargate. So, and now we get in the top three. These movies are fucking awesome. A lot of you'll probably judge me for not having this one higher, but number three I have is Tombstone.
Nice.
Awesome freaking movie. Kurt Russell plays Wyatt Earp. Like he's the best on-screen Wyatt Earp there's ever been. That movie is being amazing. I've actually been to Tombstone. My grandparents live in Arizona, and my mom's from there, so we've spent a lot of time out there. So I've got to go to Tombstone, the town, and this movie just hit a home run with what they did with it. So it's one of those movies that maybe not every year you watch, but like it's a movie you watch. You got to make sure you watch every now and then. And if it's ever on TV, I will usually watch it. So, and Val Kilmer's great in the movie too. So
he's amazing.
You get some awesome Val Kilmer in there. He's Doc Holliday, and he's got some great one-liners in there. So, okay, number two, these two movies, people are gonna barbecue me for them, but I don't fucking care. I love these movies. Number two, 3,000 Miles to Graceland.
Okay,
this movie is BA. It is so badass. Kurt Russell is a part. The movie opens up with one of the coolest, like, bank heist, casino heist scenes ever. Him and like 4 or 5 other Elvis impersonators go in and freaking they do a casino holdup. It all goes to shit. A bunch of them get killed, and then basically it turns into this whole movie where Kurt Russell just wants to get his money from the heist and go disappear. The other main bad guy, or the other guy, the Cost, Kevin Costner, is the main bad guy, who he is amazing as a bad guy. But like they are partners turned enemies. And Kurt Russell meets a girl and like her kid. And so like his character kind of changes over towards the end of like trying to be more of a good guy, and ends up kind of sacrificing himself to save them and to kill the Cost. The Cost is like the ultimate evil. He will stop at nothing to get his money and kill everyone. But it's a freaking cool movie. It reminds me of damn it, I'm going to refer to Smoking Aces. It reminds me of Smoking Aces. So I don't know if you've ever seen that, but another cool kind of casino shootout movie. Okay, number one. This movie.
I just want to say this. Did you know that in 1979 there was an Elvis biopic and Kurt Russell played Elvis?
I saw that as I was going through this list.
Do you know who directed it?
And John Carpenter.
Yeah.
And it confused me because I was like, wait, no, he played Elvis in the 3,000 Miles to Graceland movie.
Yeah.
I've never seen that movie, and I probably never will. But my number one Kurt Russell movie, he doesn't even speak in the movie. Maybe he says one line. This movie is not known to the world, but it is a sequel to the movie Blade Runner, Soldier.
Oh,
this movie, Kurt Russell plays like a he's not a super soldier, but he's like a grizzled veteran.
Is that number
Space Marine? That's my number one. I've got Soldier. That's my number one. I couldn't have the thing on my Kurt Russell. Like I had him that's my number one John Carpenter movie. But when I'm thinking of what Kurt Russell movies I want to watch, like the thing is not in those. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong for not having it there. But I just wanted to talk about all these goddamn movies. So Soldier is freaking badass. He's like a space marine who's been on war on many different planets, and he gets betrayed by his military for new super soldiers. He gets marooned on a trash planet, ends up turning into a one-man army movie. and he takes out basically all of the super soldiers that replaced him, and it's so fucking cool. It's a goofy ass movie.
It is,
but I loved it as a
movie.
kid.
Yep.
I think one day when Parker and Grayson get to watch it, since they're such nerds about like soldiers and stuff, they're gonna freaking love it. So
that's awesome.
Anyways, it's my top 5 of Kurt Russell. I think that is not what you would expect, which is pretty typical for me in my top 5s. So
yeah, I'm the straight. You're the wild card.
That's right.
It's pretty good. We had two movies that were the same.
Give them to me.
Honorable mention. I have to say, Christmas Chronicles. I have to put it as an honorable mention. If Santa Claus was ever cool, Kurt Russell's Santa Claus is pretty fucking cool.
Yes.
They're not like, listen, they're not neither. They're both entertaining. They're not the greatest movies. He's awesome as like super hip Santa Claus though.
Agreed. Totally
I enjoy it. So honorable mention.
It's a cool Christmas movie. It's a great Christmas movie.
It's worth a watch. Yeah. Number 5, I had Miracle. His portrayal of Herb Brooks as the 1980 men's hockey coach team. That's a fantastic movie. You're right. It's super inspirational. Like that story alone was inspirational with everything that team did, but the way that they made that movie, it's like goosebumps when you watch it. Like it's so well done. But I won't go any more into it. So you already did. Number 4, I had Overboard.
Oh, I knew it. I'm glad you did. My mom would be happy to hear that.
So it was like, I wanted to put something on there, and I was like looking at Captain Ron, and I was like, I got to put Overboard on here because I used to watch Overboard when I was a kid all the freaking time. I thought that movie was hilarious. Basically what it is like Kurt Russell's working on Goldie Hawn's this rich, uppity, rude woman, and he's working on her boat, and she falls overboard and hits her head and can't remember who she is. And he like basically convinces her that she's his dead wife, and convinces all his kids that that's their mom.
Yeah.
It's problematic when you talk about it. It's a very problematic movie, but it was funny at the time. And obviously she remembers who she is at the end, and it all works out. You know, she had fallen.
And it gave us that couple, and they had like a super baby who was a famous actress too. So
yeah. Well, so there's a son too, Wyatt Russell, who is you'd know him if you saw him. Did you watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Did you watch that show? No, he was U.S. agent. He was the new Captain America. Did you ever see the movie?
I do know the new Captain America.
There was a movie that came out a few years ago. It's really good. It's like a zombie Nazi hybrid movie called Overlord. Did you ever see that?
Yes, I did.
He's like the main character in that, the blonde guy.
That's Kurt Russell's son.
He looks when you see it, he looks like Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn. But yeah,
I did not.
So I had Overboard at number 4. Number 3, and I moved 2 and 3 around because I wasn't sure. Since this is a Kurt Russell specific list, I put Tombstone at number 3. I had Tombstone at number 2 at one point, but I moved it back to number 3.
Tombstone at number 3.
You did.
Let's go.
You did. So I'm a big fan of this movie. I love Tombstone. This was one of those cases where like remember when like there was a couple instances where like the same movie came out the same year by 2 different people. Like remember we had like Armageddon and Deep Impact.
Yes.
And then like we had Tombstone and we had Wyatt Earp. Kevin Costner and Dennis Quaid were Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp. And Tombstone is by far the superior movie. Yeah. Because Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer are
amazing.
Freaking dynamite. Plus, like the other 2 Earp brothers were fucking Sam Elliott and Bill Paxton were the other 2 brothers. Morgan and Virgil. And Sam Elliott's badass. I love the dude. He's awesome.
Sam Elliott, he is a cowboy movie incarnate.
Yes. Like, correct.
He can't be in anything other than cowboy movies.
Have you ever seen the movie The Contender with Joan Allen? And
what's the premise?
So Jeff Bridges is the president, and like the vice president dies and he has to find a new vice president. And Joan Allen is like this female senator, and it's basically about them having to vet her. And there's like a little bit of an old scandal that turns up, and like it kind of dives into it and stuff. You ever seen this? It's on my top 10 list of greatest movies of all time.
Oh, what's it called?
Elliott,
The Contender?
The Contender. Sam Elliott is like the president's chief of staff, and he has no mustache. And it's bothersome because and he's like this vulgar mouthed like Washington insider guy, and it's so out of character. We're gonna put that on one of these lists sometime because it's an amazing. So like, okay, so Jeff Bridges is the president. He's phenomenal. He should have won an Oscar. He was nominated for one. Joan Allen's the senator. Do you know who this Joan Allen is?
Yes.
She's amazing. Gary Oldman's like
let's go, Gary.
the head of like the Senate committee that's like vetting her, and he's like a
Commissioner Gordon.
He's like a skeezy, like nasty politician.
He can play a good bad guy if you.
He's a great actor. But yeah, this cast is fantastic, and like Sam Elliott, it's just wild. Anyway, that's wild. But so I have Tombstone at number 3. Number 2, I had Backdraft.
Oh, I almost had that in my list. What a movie!
What a freaking masterpiece! Like, basically, it's like they're firefighters. Kurt Russell and which Baldwin is it? Billy Baldwin are brothers, and Kurt Russell's like the older, grizzled one. Billy Baldwin's like the hotshot young brother, and there's like this arson investigation. They got to figure out who's the one that's setting these fires. It's a badass movie. Like, it's a Ron Howard movie. It's one of his better ones. Like, and he's made some really good movies.
Yeah,
man, it's a classic. I think it's like right around 1990. If you've never seen Backdraft, though, you've got to watch that movie. It's badass.
It's like it's used as like, in terms, I mean, we keep talking about practical effects, but like it's used as like one of like the coolest like examples of like how to make movies, like how to do cool stuff like that, like fires. And Universal Studios, I think, still has like a Backdraft like walkthrough, or it's part of like the tour. Way back in the day, like that was a big like attraction ride thing where you kind of walk through like the set of like Backdraft, and there's fires and like the scaffolding is falling.
Oh, that's cool.
Feel the heat from it. But anyways, I love that movie too. It's not in my top 5, but it is a top movie.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that like I don't think it's talked about enough, like historically, for as good as it is. Like, it's one of those movies that I think gets forgotten, but it's a great movie. And then I did what you said you weren't going to do. And number 1, my favorite Kurt Russell movie of all time is The Thing. Like, I put it at the top of both lists. I love that movie so much. Like, I could watch that movie once a month. That's how much I enjoy it. Like, watching.
I need to go back and watch it. I really do.
I watch that one every year for sure. No doubt. That's how much I like. I went and paid to go see it in the theaters last year just because I wanted to.
Oh, they played it. Oh yeah. You said that. You took Reagan. I love that.
Yeah.
There's a, Dr. Thorgy is like a YouTube channel that I follow, and he does Thorgy-ween every year. And so Halloween, the month of October, he does a bunch of movies, and this is always the movie. He does this movie like once a year during all of this, just because it's his favorite scary movie. And listening to him kind of talk through the movie and some backstory and stuff, it then turned it into an October movie for me. So like anytime it's October, I watched The Thing. So
yeah,
nice, love that. Pete, did you even, when I said 3,000 Miles to Graceland, were you like, what movie is that?
No, I know what movie it is. I just like it didn't register to be in a top 5. Just like Soldier didn't either, but
I've got Soldier at my number 1.
Oh, hey, listen, though, that's why we do these lists. We do them because they're our favorites, right? Like, if you pick Kurt Russell's best movie, it's I don't know, is it Tombstone? Maybe.
Probably.
Like, that
I would say
we both had it at 3. It might be his best movie. Might be Miracle.
Dude,
Could be.
when I was looking at my top 5 list, like all of these movies are movies that I could put on at any moment and watch.
Yes.
Like and be happy. Yeah. Like he is underrated for sure. That's actually exactly how I explained him to Reagan. I was like, well, do you know who Kurt Russell is? And I was like, he's one of the greatest actors of all time. And I'm like, wait a minute. I wouldn't say that. But I'm like, but he's probably one of the most well-known acters of all time.
Yeah, I would go with that. Like, I mean, I don't know if he's ever been like nominated for any acting awards or anything, but like he's like the definition of a solid. Like Kurt Russell's in a movie, I want to watch it. I think about recent memory, like he's the bad guy in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. He's Ego. Yep. He's awesome as that character.
I thought you were going to have that in your list.
No, because it's not. I don't feel like it's, again, that's one of those, it's like, it's not his movie kind of deal, you know, like, but at the same time, I guess he's a big enough character. He could be, still, I don't think would make the list.
I loved the Hateful Eight that he's in too.
I almost had it on there, but that movie's like such an ensemble movie.
Yeah.
Like it's again, it's not a Kurt Russell movie to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess you could say that same thing about The Thing, but he's definitely the main character.
Yeah,
I was gonna say though, like he's in the new Fast and Furious movies. Like he's in all those.
I did not know that until I was looking at the list and was like, what? He's in the Fast movie? No wonder these things are making so much money.
Yeah.
Because Kurt's in it.
He's solid. Like, but he does, like, he's funny. Overboard's funny. Like Captain Ron's hilarious. Like he's great action star. Escape from New York, Big Trouble in Little China, Tango and Cash. Like that was like a classic buddy cop movie. Like he's a good action star. And then he makes movies like Tombstone and Backdraft, where he like has to act really well and he can do it all. Like, he's a really good actor. He's solid.
Yeah. And then he throws, the Christmas Chronicles at us too. So we get a little bit of seasonal. Once a year we'll watch it because our kids are going to love it.
I mean, on the list of coolest,
our kids know him.
On the list of coolest Santa Clauses ever on film, he's got to be near the top if he's not number one.
Yeah. Yep. He's close. He's close to getting to Klaus.
Was that J.K. Simmons in Klaus?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I fucking love Klaus.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
Anyways,
I mean, Tim Allen was Santa Claus. Tim Allen was a cool Santa Claus. Like,
dude, good job, good point. Oh, we're gonna have to do a good list whenever we get.
But if they all had to
time.
fight, Kurt Russell might win. He'd probably win. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Anyway,
nice.
that's our. There could be only 5 for this week. Kurt Russell and John Carpenter movies. I got to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time that like nobody's ever seen, which was super exciting. Yeah, man.
I'm going to watch it right after we jump off of this. I'm going to pull it up.
Yeah, it's a real political drama. It's cool. There's even
Sounds like a movie my brother has probably already seen or loves. He likes that. Like,
I don't know. Like it wasn't a super popular movie when it came out. And I had a buddy of mine like, have you ever seen this? And I'm like, no, this is a boxing movie. That's why when they called it The Contender, that's what I thought it was. No, it's this political drama. And I'm like, snooze. And he's like, just watch it. And I was like, this is one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. This movie's
awesome.
It's a 10. It's a 10.
Damn.
So that brings
it sounds like that. It sounds like, because you went and saw the Spider-Verse again today, it sounds like that might be a 10 to you now too.
Yeah, I wasn't going to talk about this. So when we did Spider-Verse 2 weeks ago, I made a point. I talked about it on the podcast how we took our boys. I didn't take Reagan. She got in trouble that week. So she was in the doghouse. She didn't get to go to the movie. So she's had a really good couple weeks. She had like a camp this week and Desi got to go swimming every day. So I was like, let's go Friday night. Me and you will go see Spider-Verse because I wanted to see it again anyway. Man. Kyle. I think it might be the greatest comic book movie I've ever seen.
Don't judge me for making quick decisions, but man,
Kyle.
I just knew it. It's good. It's fucking good.
Kyle, it's a 10.
Yeah, goddamn right it is.
It's so
Look at
freaking
you.
good.
You just handed out your first 10. Welcome to the club.
Oh, I guess I'm changing the rating on a movie we reviewed, and I'm giving it a 10.
I fucking love that.
I can't
That's
think
good.
of a comic book movie that's better. And I mean, like, listen, the Dark Knight is on an even playing field with this movie. That's how good it is. Like, if you haven't seen Across the Spider-Verse, holy shit. And I've on this podcast have dogged the first one because I think it's overrated. It's not a bad movie, but I think it's overrated. You talked about movies that make the originals better.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like I said, there was nothing I felt like they could have done to make it better. Like,
no, there's like
that I would suggest to do different.
And I was watching, like, I was paying more attention to, like, the art and all the details and, like, the music and everything that went with it and how it all fit so well in the scenes and the voice actors and, like, even some of the funny parts, like, they are timed perfectly. It's there's nothing wrong with that movie at all.
It has to be like the Oscar winner for like
best animated feature.
Movie.
There's no doubt. There is zero doubt in my mind it'll win that. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's nominated for Best Picture overall. I wouldn't be. If they do 10, if they do 10 nominees, I wouldn't be surprised how good that movie is.
More, even if you're just looking at it from the standpoint of, like, how do you put all that together? Like, the thought that goes into the things that they did with the art and with the scenery and the change of different places. And like you said, like, music was really important to everything. Like, it all seamlessly went together. And like, it reminds me of that meme where, like, the dude's got like 14,000 red yarns going everywhere. And he's like,
oh yeah, the Charlie Day one.
Yeah, like that's what had to have been happening when they were making this movie to make sure that everything lined up. So anyways, all right, we're way off track. We're going to be again in another crazy.
I don't think this one's near as long because I think our main segment was shorter than normal. So we're going to be back next week, episode Lucky 13. Ooh. Big premiere movie of the week, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I am pretty excited for this one too. Goodbye to Indiana Jones. Like, Harrison Ford's done with the character after this. We never thought we were going to get this movie anyway, though, because he's
true.
He's in his 80s, but it looks good. I'm excited for it. Mm-hmm. After seeing The Flash, I've curbed my expectations on getting excited for a movie.
Well, I mean, you also hated the Crystal Skull, and I liked getting more Indiana Jones.
I just was like, when you compare it to the other three, I thought it was so far below them.
Yeah,
like Raiders of the Lost Ark is probably one of the greatest action movies of all time, like action adventure movies.
Mm-hmm.
Temple of Doom has aged well because it was so drastically different than Raiders when it came out. I think there was a lot of people that were meh. And it was the movie that basically, like, created PG-13. Like, that movie it couldn't be PG. I mean, it was, but like, you watch that and you're like, how is this movie a PG movie? Like, a dude just ripped his heart out, you know? Right. And then Last Crusade it's way up there too. So I just, like, Crystal Skull's not a bad movie. It's just when you compare it to the other three.
Last Crusade's my favorite, by the way.
I think it was mine too, growing up, because I think it was the first one I got to see in the theater because of how old I was, and like I had the comic books too. There was comic books that was basically like sections of the movie, like you bought the whole set.
Oh,
and
cool.
It told the whole, and they were really good artwork, and so I think that's why that one was my favorite too. I thought it was great. After watching them all as an adult, Raiders is the better movie. But like Last Crusade's not far off.
Gotcha.
And Temple of Doom's, it's pretty good.
I mean, Crystal Skull's up there with Raiders, right?
No.
Just kidding.
I didn't think it was near as good. There's just
I'm excited for it next week. I'm pumped.
I am too.
I
think it's going to be.
We're going to post Geek Out reaction.
I think we're going to get like a. Yeah, then you're going to Fan Expo. Well, I think we're going to get like a in between. I think we're going to get like an in between Last Crusade and Crystal Skull, quality wise. I think that's what we're going to. Yeah, that's what I'm feeling based on what I'm hearing and seeing the trailers and stuff.
Yeah, and I won't dive into much of it, but from what I thought I saw online, like they like make him younger, or they do some like
in parts of the movie. There's flashback scenes. Yeah, you can see that in the trailer.
They like CG him a little bit younger, so which I'm like, cool, bring it on. If you got I don't have a problem with that.
It'll look better then.
Anything that Andy Muschietti's made.
Yeah.
Machete. Yeah.
I'll stop. I'm done. I'll quit crapping. All right, guys, that's it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you got us on YouTube, no matter where you're listening or watching, please give us a like and subscribe. We'd appreciate it. Leave us some comments. Give us your thoughts on what you liked or didn't like. Maybe maybe you got a favorite Kurt Russell movie that we forgot. Maybe you got a John Carpenter movie we forgot. Let us know. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Podcast Index. See us on social media at Movie Dads Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Thanks again. We'll be back next week with Indiana Jones. Bye.
Bye.